And sometimes Gladys disconnecting would be really more beneficial. And I know there's a negative connotation when you're a solo parent, especially if you're a solo mom, that you're
Mm-hmm.
desperate, that you need a relationship to make things work. But for me, I was thinking back then, was I mad? Did I feel used or of small value, not as marketable? But I didn't feel any of those because I think self awareness can do that to you. I think I am whole, a complete person when I entered those relationships. There was no illusion of conquering or possessing when I engaged in one. I was just simply sharing my life at that moment. And when it failed, I continued my journey.
Emerge Stories is a place where, as the name implies, you are going to hear stories. Stories from people all over the Philippines who have come from many different types of backgrounds, and especially people who have gone through struggles, people who have gone through the challenging parts of life. And I hope that these stories will relate for you in some way, that some of these stories will really land for you because these people have gone through probably just about the same thing you might be going through right now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Emerge Stories interview, where we interview regular Filipinos with extraordinary story, a story of growth and transformation. Today's guest is Marj Pabilonia, a single mother of three teenagers who sees opportunity to become a scholar of FTW and emerge triumphantly, securing a position in FinTech after graduation. Marge's commitment is using data for good, and it led her to her current role as a data scientist, data analyst for the International Committee of the Red Cross, where she channels her skills to make a meaningful impact. A true super mom. Please welcome Marge Babylonia. Hi, Marge. Thank you so much
Hi,
for being
Gladys.
here.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
It's my pleasure. I'm really curious, as a mother myself, how did you transition to becoming, a data scientist? What led you to pursue that career?
Mhm. Even before I started as a data scientist, Gladys, I already have a background in data. But I was working as a report analyst at a BPO company. But before I was a reporting analyst, I was a real time analyst. But even before that, I was a call center agent. And we all know what's like the misconception or connotation when you say you're a BPO agent. Like you're not that smart. We
Mm,
have that connotation when we heard that. But before I was a call center agent, I actually started working as a food attendant, as a waitress when I was young. I was 17 when I first started working. And then when I decided to go back schooling around 29 years old, I decided to get a job that has a night shift so that I can study in the mornings and then I can work at night so that even if I'm working and I'm studying, I can still have money to provide for my kids because at that time I already have kids. So
wow.
my life is an indie movie and it didn't happen in sequence and in order. So I had my first child at 24 and then
Mm.
I had the twins at 27.
Oh.
And then at 29, I decided to go back schooling. And I remember when I tried to go back schooling, the dean asked me, bakit ka pa babalik sa school? Parang sinasayang mo lang yung oras mo, she said. And
Mm.
back then, I felt bad because I was thinking, oras ko naman yung sinasayang ko. Parang, it doesn't mean na you're a parent already or that
Mm-hmm.
you're already earning for them that you should stop growing. And I want to really explore my potentials during that time. So I tried to go back schooling. And then after I graduated in 2016, I was already 33 years old. And not a lot
Mm.
of people know that I got my degree at 33 because when you're young, it's really an embarrassment. It's a source of shame when you don't graduate alongside your batchmates,
Right.
something like that.
Totally.
But I graduated at 33. And then when I had a degree, I decided to take my master's because I'm already allowed.
Mm,
take my master's since I already have a degree. I took statistics in UP, demand for my master's. And then it was also around the time where I met FTW, sometime 2019.
that's great. Wow, you had really the roller coaster journey. And I can just imagine being a mother of three and still pursuing school, studying, finishing, getting your master's. That's a lot of things in your plate to actually take care of. And right now, obviously, you've succeeded in that field. You got your master's, you secured a good job. I want to go back a little bit of your story because people might say, oh, you're very lucky. It must be so easy for you to do that. What are some of the struggles that you actually face along the way in order for you to get where you are right now?
Apart from the financial side of it, there are days when I was studying and working where I don't sleep for 2 straight days. I
Wow.
know people will think that's an exaggeration, but that's the truth. There are times when I start working during Mondays, I know that my next sleep won't be until Wednesday afternoon. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really a struggle. And when people see it from outside looking in, they always ask you, parang ang galing mo naman, parang how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you do it all? How do you do everything? But I think what they don't see is when you're succeeding at one area, you're actually failing at another.
Mm,
Like when you're succeeding at work, that means that you're missing a PTA meeting or you can't go to a special event and your kid's school, something like that. So it was really a struggle during those years, but I'm just glad it's over. And I received a lot of support, definitely. I know people might think that because for me, I have this mindset that I always get what I want, but there's a continuation to it. I always get what I want because I work hard for it. But I don't really take it as just my success alone because I receive a lot of support in those journey. You know, I have great colleagues that really strengthened me throughout the journey. And we don't have the same shift. They are morning shift and I'm night shift, but we always have breakfast together at 10 o'clock, something like that. So it was great. And even my classmates, when there are times, when there are days I don't even change clothes because of the continuous schedule, they will tell me, Ate Marj, parang okay lang, sanay na kami, things like that. And I got a lot of considerations from my professors as well, and even my bosses. Sometimes there are times that I need to send a report every hour, but they tried to delegate those tasks to other colleagues as well so that I can take some naps in between work, things like
mm.
that. So I got a lot of support, definitely.
That's very good. I just want to point out when you said, because a lot of people they aim for like a work life balance, and if they think that no, there are people who's really able to juggle that, and I personally think that's a myth. Because if you want to focus on, let's say, studying, that means, as you said, you will be missing some of the meeting with your kid. There will be less time to spend with them because you're pursuing this career. But I think the goal there is to have like a timeline and like a kind of smart goal. Like, okay, for this period of time, for this hour, I will be putting all my focus and energy to get my degree, to get this. And when it's done, that will be the time that I will have more time to spend with my kids. Because I think a lot of moms felt really guilty in doing that. When they're already a mother, they forget about themselves. This called sacrifice themselves and
Mhm.
just focus their attention to their children, but they don't really allow themselves to flourish as well. There's so much more that we can do as a mother. We can be anyone we want to be, but there's going to be some sacrifices in between. There's going to be some choices in between as well that we also have to be aware of and willing to do during those times. So thank you for saying that because as you said, a lot of people will just think of you like, oh, yeah, a true super woman. Like you can just for you it's possible and maybe for me it's not, but you can do it.
I like how proud my kids are when they see what I do. Like, for them, mothers run companies,
Right.
in their world, mother owns Thursday nights, something like that. And I think I'm a better mother for it, the woman I am, because I get to work, I get to study, and I get to travel sometimes, and even with the kids in tow on some occasions. And that woman is a better person and a better mother because she's happy, fulfilled, and whole.
Thank you, Marge. That's a good reminder, even for myself as well, because there are times I feel guilty. Oh, I'm working so much, like I'm doing a lot of these things. I wish I could just be home and just focusing with my kids. But as you said, you're setting an example to your kids that, hey, you can play different type of role. You don't have to limit yourself. So I'm sure your kids are so proud of you. Totally
And
can see
and
that.
And Gladys, we also have this selfish time wherein I allow them to be alone, or they allow me to spend my time however I want to. For example, on Friday nights, we have those selfish time just for them, or just for me to establish that even on their viewpoint, I'm not just a mother, I'm also a woman. I also have needs, or I also have these things I want to pursue outside of being a parent. And I think they understand if you explain it to them very well and they see how you live your life. Because sometimes it's not really what you tell them, it's what they see that impacts them the most.
Totally. Kids actually follow what they see. And I love if you can actually tell me more about the dynamic at home. You seem to have a different approach when it comes to raising your kids. You have that selfish time, you have this. What are those times? If you can tell me more about it.
For selfish times where they're not allowed to talk to me, they're not allowed to ask questions. I can spend my time however I want. And them too, they can explore anything they want during those times. It's only for a short period of time. But we also balance it out. Like, for example, on Sundays, we do the hands free. Like, we don't do cell phones on Sundays just to spend more time together. And then we also have dear time, like drop everything and read time, just for us to focus more on our love for reading. And then we also have some traditions at home where instead of doing birthday party, we do birthday travels so that they can explore different places, and not just to see beautiful places or have beautiful pictures or memories, but also to be exposed to different people, how helpful people can be, and how they can just ask things sometimes if they need help, things like that, that they can learn during travels.
Wow. I will incorporate some of this with my kids. I'll introduce this to them. That's very nice. Where did you get this idea? Do you really have a specific name for it? Like you have the hands free, read time, selfish time, birthday travel. Where did you get this?
Nothing really, just maybe from my experience as a child growing up, because my parents are both OFW. They work in a cruise ship, so they
Mm-hmm.
travel all around the world, but we never really traveled together. So growing up, I always have that feeling of wanting to travel. And when I had my kids, at the beginning, it was difficult because we traveled in La Union, for example, with three Dura boxes and I have to
Mm-hmm.
carry everything. But during those times, I was thinking that things will get better. It will not always be like this. And now we are traveling as a buddy. It's more enjoyable. And growing up, sorry if my mom will watch this. My mom was somewhat resentful growing up because my dad restricted her not to work so that she can take care of
Mm.
us. And sometimes there will be resentment towards us because she will say things like, parang ginive up ko yung trabaho ko para sa inyo. Parang
Mm-hmm.
sinakripisyo ko ganyan. Tapos ito lang yung gagawin ninyo. Parang ayan lang yung grades na makuha nyo. Parang ganun. And as a kid, I was thinking the time na hindi naman namin hiningi yun. Parang we didn't really ask her to give up or sacrifice anything for us. In fact, maybe it would have been a happier childhood if she was also happy. So when I became a parent, not that I planned to, but when I became a parent, it was a very mindful and deliberate decision to veer away from those regrets, things like that. And I realized that growing up, you can actually do parenting the way you want to. Not the reckless kind of parenting where bahala kayo dyan, but
Mm-hmm.
the kind where you are more mindful of your child's need and not the kind of parenting that the society expects you
Right.
to do.
Mm-hmm.
You can completely redefine how you want to parent your kids. And as an education graduate, I have a background in child development, adolescent development, etc. So I think that helped me a lot in understanding how to handle the kids, how to shape them,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, things like
Yeah.
that.
I think this is so important for, especially here in the Philippines, to hear this kind of story because most of us, we automatically just adapt to the kind of upbringing that we grew up with, the parenting style that our parents taught us. And there's a lot of families, like we're known to have an extended family, so our parents can still tell us what to do, how to teach our kids, or how to guide them. And that's why Emerge, most of our goal is to inspire people to take more ownership of their growth, really take more ownership of their decision, of their life. It's nice to have some guidance with your parents, but it's also nice to be, as you said, be mindful and reflect. Does it really serve me? Does it really serve me to go to this path, to just sacrifice for my kids and sacrifice my own happiness? And as you said, you felt indebted as a child when in fact you didn't really ask for it. And it would have been so much better if they can see their parents thriving as an individual and at the same time still being able to be there as a mom for them. It would be so much better experience. So thank you for sharing that story, for being vulnerable and expressing it. I really appreciate that.
There-
And what was the struggle like being a single mom as well? If you don't mind me asking, like when did that journey start?
Honestly, Gladys, I don't really consider solo parenting as a challenge. I just take
Mm-hmm.
it, it is what it is. I think statistically, what are the odds that when you meet a person, it will be 100% okay and that it will work? I think sometimes things don't work, and that's life. So there was no crying moment or walling moment for me. I just accepted that it did not work. I was open to co parenting, but I think my co parent is not as responsible as he should be. During the time when he informed me that he will no longer provide financial support, that's the time where I tried to explore more options for me. Because back then, I didn't really feel like fear, or I wasn't afraid that I will be alone because I know I'm smart. I know I'm resourceful. I can do a lot of things. That was back in 2019. I considered 2019 my year of planting seeds. That's where I started exploring options, and that's where I actually met FTW for their data science scholarship program. But as a solo parent, I'm sorry to say this, but it's actually easier because you don't get to share the values. Like, for example, the values you want to impart to your kids, it's yours alone compared to if you have another parent doing it. Because we have different core values with my previous partner. So every time they are there, it's a different rule. There are different rules for them. For example, I did not allow my kids to have a cell phone until they're 11. And whenever they're there, the dad always allowed them to play cell phone games, etc. And I don't really approve of it. So when it was just me, then I can set the rules myself and then there are no conflicts. Because I read somewhere that when parents are not together, it's the instability of it. So I don't think it's healthy for the kids to have different set of rules. Like it's okay today, but tomorrow it's not. So as a solo parent, I find it easier that I can be more focused with the things I want to introduce to my kids. And in terms of the actual physical challenge of being a parent, I love it. I love every bit of it. Even the sleepless nights, I
Mm.
tried to savor it as much as I can because I know it's very fast and it is. Right now, they're teenagers. They don't want my attention anymore.
Aw,
But
savor the moments when they're still little and they still want to spend time with you.
true. How old are your kids?
My kids are 8 and 10, little ones. My 10 is already starting to have his own space and time, but at least my daughter still wants my time. But Marge, I just want to really commend you for the parenting and the kind of mindset that you have in approaching being a solo parent and how you look at it, because it's just so beautiful. I feel like your relationship with your kids is really good. And that's for me is most important. There's a lot of couples who try to stay together even though it's obviously very toxic. It's not helpful anymore. And the kids can actually see that. And that was the pivotal moment for me as well to decide that, okay, I have to leave this relationship because it's not healthy for me. And as much as I want to have that complete family, it doesn't serve my kids anyway. It traumatized them. And that's also why it's important to, if you're looking for a partner, find someone who is values aligned with you.
True.
And I felt so lucky and grateful as well that I met Eli, who is my co-founder as well in Emerge PH, who really see kids as not a kids. They see it as another human being. And in order for me to gain their respect, I don't have to use force and to have that hierarchy that, oh, I am the mother. I need to have the last word to say. But it's like, okay, we're living in the same house. How can we collaborate and contribute and help each other? Parang teamwork siya, kumbaga. So
Mhm.
I like that. And I'm learning so much that I'm taking notes here that I will also share with my kids and Eli and how we can better improve our relationship setup. Next tonight, we will be going back to Cebu and my kids will spend time with their dad. So I will spend time with him first and have a conversation. Because yeah, we have different values. There are things that I want. There are
Mhm.
things that I do with my kids that is opposite with their dad. And as you said, it's nice to have that stability and not changing rules. So that's something that I was really able to take away. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing that.
Thank you. And sometimes Gladys disconnecting would be really more beneficial. And I know there's a negative connotation when you're a solo parent, especially if you're a solo mom, that you're
Mm-hmm.
desperate, that you need a relationship to make things work. But for me, I was thinking back then, was I mad? Did I feel used or of small value, not as marketable? But I didn't feel any of those because I think self awareness can do that to you. I think I am whole, a complete person when I entered those relationships. There was no illusion of conquering or possessing when I engaged in one. I was just simply sharing my life at that moment. And when it failed, I continued my journey.
That's powerful. Like when you say having that self awareness and coming into a relationship as a whole, because I learned that very late as well. And I think that's one of the reason why the relationship also failed miserably. And it was so painful because we both came in, we merged our lives together, expecting the other person to complete us. Yung Disney quote, like,
Fairy
oh,
tale.
yeah, the fairy tale story of, oh, you complete me. You're the missing piece of the puzzle. My God. It's not healthy to actually think of it that way because you would expect the other person to be someone that would fit you. And if they don't live up to that expectation, there will be fights, there will be some heartbreaks along the way. And it's also sad to separate when you already know that it's not working because you're so attached to the idea of, this is the one, I don't want to lose it. But
Mhm.
in your case, it was, as I think, as I listened to it, it's easy for you to just decide and move on
Mhm.
because you see that, okay, this is not working. And at least I get to spend time and to experience that journey with him. But now I'm moving on to continue my journey alone. So that's great. I like that. How are you right now? Are you single, in relationship? How's your love life?
Very much single. I don't think I want to have another relationship at this point because I don't like the upkeep. I don't like maintaining the happiness of another person. So I'm good with the kids right now and I'm not looking for another relationship. Unless
That's
maybe it's Jimin from BTS.
wow. That's a high standard right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's actually good for a woman, especially if you're a mother, because you're bringing in another person to be present with your kids' life.
Mm.
And I took my time for 3 years to actually be single. Though 2 years of that, I was desperate in finding new person. But I'm glad that nothing works out because I realized that it wouldn't have worked anyway if I just forced myself to be in a relationship at that time. And when I
Mhm.
decided I'm happy being with myself and being with my kids, that's when the actually right person you get to attract the right person that you're looking for. And you actually create a high standard for yourself. So BTS, Jimin, for Marj.
And Gladys, as a solo parent, there's a misconception, especially here in the Philippines, that if you're a
Mm-hmm.
solo parent, you're desperate to have another partner to share the workload. But
Mm.
the way we designed our life together, me and my kids, I think for us to accept another person in our lives, he has to really show us what value will he be adding to our life, because our life is awesome as it is. And we don't need another person to complete us or to make us happy or anything. So we're good.
And it's so liberating and powerful to actually know that you are able to lead your life. You have the control with your life other than relying on other people. Like your happiness relies outside of you. It's so much better that you are able to generate the happiness within yourself. You're able to generate satisfaction within yourself instead of just letting outside force affect it. Yes, that's very good. How old are your kids right now, Marge?
The twins are turning 13 this July, and then I have a 16-year-old in September.
Are there challenges along with raising teenagers?
Oh my God, yes.
What are those challenges and how do you actually handle them?
It's difficult to explain, but I think you will encounter this few years from now. I think there is really a unique relationship of parent to a child. They can really see you, like all masks off. They have the front seat to the most raw and ugly version of you. But as a parent, you realize that anger has a limit. Like when they do things, it's not as if you can really sustain a 100% level of anger, because at the bottom of your heart, you know that you just want the best for them. But I think the most difficult part of having teenager is you want to establish some sort of control,
Mm.
at the same time striking a balance that they will not view it as something that will restrict them or limit them to explore their potential as well. So you really have to be careful with your words. You have to be deliberate with the way you talk to them or the way you discipline them. I actually want to conduct a study between, the correlation of your anger limit as a parent and their level of fear as a child.
Mm.
Because sometimes child these days are fearless. They're more aware
Mm-hmm.
of what their rights are. They're aware of mental health. They're aware of the difference in genders, the different spectrum, all of the LGBT letters, etc. And they're very curious. They want to explore a lot of things. And you really have to be careful on how you balance the nature and nurture part. Even if, as much as you want to influence them with a lot of good things, you can't control everything, their environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest struggle. Even, for example, just I have two boys,
Mm.
and you know how easy it is to access porn these days.
Mm.
Before, for us to be able to watch an indecent movie, you have to enter a Betamax or a VHS in a player. But now they can just click on anything and they can be easily influenced like that. So you really have to be careful on the kind of conversation you have with them, the kind of guidance
Mm-hmm.
you have with them, especially on this formative and teenage years where I think they're testing your limits as well on
Mm.
how far they can go. But I'm just doing it one day at a time, on what problems I can handle at a time or what
Mm-hmm.
challenges I can help them with, whether in school or personal, or how they view things or how they build themselves as an individual apart from being my kid, because we always have that like God complex where
Mm-hmm.
we see our kids as an extension of us. That if
True.
they're not an honor student, for example, in social media, it's very common that you post your children's accomplishment if they're an honor student. But
Mm-hmm.
I try to veer away from that practice because I want them to realize that there's more to life than being an achiever.
Mm.
And I try to raise them as a good individual that not only focuses on what they can do or what they can achieve, but also what they can do for others as well.
It's very good. Like, wow, your kids are very lucky to have you as their mom. You have such wide understanding when it comes to not just as parent, but how human works and how, as much as we want to control our kids and we want to control people around us to meet our needs, to make us feel happy. And that's where all the resistance and struggle coming from is when we lose that sense of control over them. And how do you manage it when you're in that anger state? And as you said, sometimes our kids will challenge us and try to test our limits. How do you manage those moments?
I always try to go back to what is the issue at hand. Whenever I identify what the problem is, I try to see it from my child's point of view. If there is a struggle where they want to do something and I don't approve of it, I try asking myself questions like, do I don't approve of it because it's harmful to them, or is it because I fear that they might be hurt from it, something like that. So I try to identify it. I try to see what the root cause of what my disapproval is coming from. And that's where I start. And I think you can always try to talk to your kid or have a conversation in such a way that is not harmful to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't really have to always enforce that you're the parent. Sometimes when my kids answer me back, I try to think, is that a good thing that they answer me back? It means that they're critical thinkers, something like that. And it's hard to take it against them if you taught them to think for themselves as well. So I try to balance my ego. Sometimes I take pride out of the way and I sometimes accept that sometimes I'm not a perfect parent as well and I can have different takes from them, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. I love that you're practicing humility. It doesn't mean that you're a parent, you know everything. Your kids might have a better understanding. Now they have so many access to knowledge and information. And I would even sometimes be surprised when I say something and then my son like, "Well, I don't think that's true. Like I read something and like, okay, he has a reference. I don't. And I just want to point out as well, because it's embedded, it's deep rooted in our culture in the Philippines, how we put so much respect in elders
Mhm.
like parents. And whenever we question their decision or their action, it's like we are labeled as bad kids. At least in my upbringing, that's like that. And because of it, it was hard for me to voice out my own opinion for the fear that, oh, I'm being a bad kid. I'm talking back to elders, something like that. So I'm glad that in your family, within your kids, you actually allow open communication, you listen to them as well instead of just enforcing things on them and letting them listen to you. So that's very good.
One time, Gladys, I read this group chat from one of my kids. It's like a normal group chat, but the way she's chatting with the friend, it's a konyo. No,
Mm.
it's like a cool conversation. And my first thought was, bakit ganyan ka magsalita? Hindi ka naman ganyan magsalita sa bahay. And I wanted to call her out
Mm-hmm.
that she doesn't need to use those cool languages to be a cool person, something like that. But I also tried to assess before I talk to her that maybe that's her way of gaining confidence or belonging to a certain niche in their school, something like that. So instead of talking to her na, huwag ka ganyan magsalita or bakit ganyan
Mm.
ka makipagsalita sa classmate mo, I tried to ask her, "Max, kaya ka ba ganyan makipag-usap sa friend mo kasi gusto mo na parang makakasabay ka sa kanila mag-English?" Something like that. And it's very important for you to give them freedom as well to explore themselves as individual on how they fit in certain groups so that they know you're an ally, that
Mm.
you're not the enemy, and then they can have an open conversation with a lot of things that they don't normally share to adults. So there.
That's nice. I just recently become really intentional when it comes to parenting, like reading books about how to parent kids. And
I
we
can
had,
send you. I can
oh,
send you some
please.
book.
Yes, please give me some resources because we had this book club as well inside Emerge PH. And the book that we read was Mindset by Carol Dweck. And there's part of the book where how can you apply growth mindset when it comes to parenting? And I noticed that I think you're doing this where you don't just praise kids because, oh, you're so smart, you excel in school, this and that, but you
Praise the
actually,
effort.
yeah, you base it in the effort that they're doing, the hard work. And I think that's so much better for them. It's more helpful for the kids if you praise the effort instead of like the result or something. That's better. And also, there was this part that I want to, oh, instead of judging them, because you could easily just judge your kid and say, oh, don't do this, don't do that.
Mm-mm.
It looks bad. Like they would be in that defensive mode and they wouldn't be able to open up to you because you're already judging them if you reacted that way. But I'm so glad that you choose to actually step back, pause, and think and ask yourself, and then approach it in a different way and being more curious instead of judging her. That's so nice. Amazing.
Easier said than done, but we tried.
Yeah, at least we just practice. I remember one time with my daughter, she doesn't want to go to school. And my automatic response is getting mad and getting angry to the point that I'm already yelling at her. And at the end, I see her just being frozen there. She doesn't talk anymore. She's just crying and don't talk to me. And I end up crying as well because like I got frustrated. Like I already used force, I already raised my voice and nothing happened. And now when I try to talk to her in a soft way, it doesn't affect anymore because she's already scared. And grateful to one of my book club buddy, Keith, for sending me a video. I forgot the name of this guy, like how we have these different parts of our brain and when
Mm-mm.
this part of our brain here, not the amygdala, but different, like the fear center, it causes our kid to just either flight or fight. They froze. And my kid, she didn't fight me back, but she just froze there. And to see your child being so afraid that they couldn't even move, like, how could you still raise your voice? How could you still get angry? As a parent, you need to stay in this level headed mind and not go down there. But it's so hard. I'm still trying to practice it.
And I remember there's this part in a book by Alice Osma, The Reading
Mm-hmm.
Promise. It's a story where every day for I'm not sure how many years they did read books every day. She read books with her father every day. They didn't miss any single day. And there was a part, I think at the beginning of the book, I actually tried searching it in Google right now so that I can read it to you. She said, this is the quote: if a child sees something in a parent that the child aspires to, he or she will copy that parent and be content. If a children feel that a parent is living a life that shows compassion and understanding, patience and love, that child will not have to reach a stage of rebellion against that parent. Because why rebel against someone who has listened to you and wants to help you fulfill your dreams? Something like that. And when I read this way back when I was just a young parent, it really struck me that that's right. If you know that your parent is someone who would listen to you, why rebel against them when you know that they only want what's best for you or what's good for you?
Wow. Thank you for taking the time to actually look for that
Yeah,
and
I was
share it.
very
It made me a little bit emotional as well. That's beautiful. And this is what I love about doing interview and meeting people is I get to learn so much. And Marge, I so excited to share this story with others because I personally learned a lot from this. I wish we could talk more. But
I know.
anyway,
I should meet in person
Ooh,
sometimes. Let's
yes,
just have coffee and everything.
yes, yes, please. Where are you in Manila? Are you in Manila
In
right now?
Makati.
Ew, okay, that's good. Whenever we go to Manila, it's always Makati that we stay around. So let's connect after this.
Yes.
It's rare for me to actually meet other people who's also a parent who approach their kids this way. I'm happy that we've built this community where I get to connect with like-minded people, because in the background that I'm in my family, it's still very traditional. The way you raise
Mhm.
kids, it's still this hierarchy of treating your kids, and I don't resonate with that anymore. So I'm so happy and excited whenever I come across parents like you. So thank you so much, Marge. So
Thank
nice to
you.
meet you. All right. Well, I just have one question that I want to ask before we wrap this up. What do you want to say to people who actually want to emerge as a better version of themselves, if there's a tip that you could maybe give to them?
I think you don't really need others' permission to emerge. If you want to pursue something, you just have to do it. And I read of this concept before, Gladys, the concept of entropy. I'm not
Mm,
sure if you've heard of it.
I've heard
It
of it.
Yep, it's by James Clear. He was also an author of a book I read, The Atomic Habits. And for this entropy is a measure of disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And the crucial thing about it is that it always increases over time. So it's a natural tendency to lose order. So left to its own device, life will always become less structured. And I think it's very important to be aware of this as a person, that if you don't do anything, then the natural order of things is that it will get less structured. So
Mm,
you must take it upon yourself to design your ideal lifestyle. Because given what we know about entropy, what do you think the odds are that the environment you happen to grow up in is also the optimal environment for you? It's very unlikely that your life is going to present you with a situation that perfectly matches what you want or what you need. So out of all the possible scenarios you could encounter, it's far more likely that you will encounter one that doesn't really match your potentials, your talent,
mm-hmm.
etc. So knowing that, you can design a life you want. You can pursue the things you think you're good at, especially with the resources we have now. We have Google, we have Coursera, we have Udemy, and you'll realize that there's also a lot of givers in this world. You just have to find them and give back as well when you find yourself in the position that you can give as well. So for you to emerge, just do it. I
Yes.
I have this quote. I read this somewhere that the secret to discipline isn't shouting affirmations, making an elaborate morning routine, or visualizing success. It's respecting yourself enough to do the thing you know you need to do, regardless of how you feel in the moment. And I think that's very important if you want to grow, if you want to emerge, or if you want to explore something, that no matter how you feel, no matter what state you're in, you just have to do it.
State of discipline.
Yep.
And the more you actually do that, it becomes a habit. And then you don't have to use your free will anymore because it will just come naturally. But
Mhm.
of course, to start it, you still have to build that muscle
True.
first. That's so nice. That was so powerful, Marge, that you shared that. And thank you so much again for having this time and doing this conversation with me and helping us in expressing or sharing stories of beautiful, inspiring stories like yours. And I hope that a lot of people will be able to learn and take something from it like I do.
Thank you so much for listening to this interview on Emerge Stories. We really hope that something here sparked your curiosity or maybe helped you think about something in your life just from a little bit of a different angle or perspective, maybe opened up your mind to something you might be able to do in your life to take more ownership of your own learning and growth. That's the goal of this show. So please join our community, like and share, and tell other people about these stories if they're meaningful for you. And thanks so much for being here.